Senator Susan Collins, the great senator of Maine, from Maine.
Thank you so much, Joe. You truly embody the qualities of No Labels. I want to thank all of you for being here today and for working on the issues of problem solving, collaboration, and civility, the very goals of No Labels. A special thank you to Josh Gottheimer and Tom Reed, who lead the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House, which I think of as the operational arm of No Labels. I also am very proud to be an honorary chair of No Labels with my dear friend Joe Manchin of West Virginia. We are head of an ad hoc group called the Common Sense Coalition in the Senate that also works with No Labels. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank the founder of No Labels, Nancy Jacobson, the board members, and all of the staff who have worked so hard to bring about this organization and to put on this important conference. There is truly no better example of bipartisanship than my dear friend, Joe Lieberman. And I want to tell you a little bit of how we worked together in the Senate when we headed the Senate Homeland Security Committee. We worked as a bipartisan team. And as a result, we got so much done. We revamped our intelligence community in the wake of the terrorist attacks of 9/11. We worked together to repeal the discriminatory law, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And we also totally restructured FEMA and prepared and improved our emergency preparedness in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. Those are just some of the significant laws that we joined together to pass. And it was because, as Joe said, that we trusted each other, listened to each other, and worked in a collaborative way that we were able to achieve such success. I still remember when control of the Senate did switch at one point, and Joe gave me a call and said, Susan, just remember, the only thing that's going to change is who holds the gavel. That's how close our partnership was and is, and the country was better for it. Unfortunately, that kind of collaboration is woefully out of style today. There's a lot of debate of whether the hyper-partisanship and polarization in Washington just simply reflects the divisiveness in our country or vice versa. But regardless, it has to end. My theory is that we've had a rise of groups that are very ideological on the far left and the far right who demand of members of Congress 100% compliance with 100% of their views, 100% of the time. I am never going to be able to satisfy those groups, and I don't want to. The issues we face are more complicated than that. They're more nuanced. They require us to seek common ground. And I am proud of the fact that for each of the last 6 years, I have been named as America's most bipartisan senator. That's what we need more of in the United States Congress. If our country is to come together, Each of us has a role to play. We need each of you to be as energized and active as the members of those groups on the far left and the far right. We need you to become fanatical moderates, to care as much about rebuilding the political center as they do about pursuing ideological agendas on the far left and the far right. We also need you to urge your members of Congress to become active in No Labels and to join us in bipartisan, bicameral meetings that we are holding every month in order to tackle big issues like the rising costs, the unacceptable costs of prescription drugs, the need to rebuild our infrastructure, and the imperative to pass responsible gun safety legislation. None of those will occur unless we listen to each other and meet in the same room. And thus, the theme of this conference, get in the room. We need you to help us expand the number of members of Congress who will get in the room. And I'm proud that during a lot of the problems that we've had, whether it was the government shutdown or working on immigration issues, that my office is fondly referred to as Little Switzerland in the Senate. The good news is that there are a growing number of members of Congress who are striving to set that example. Given the toxic atmosphere in Washington, however, we must establish a stabilizing force within Congress of members who are willing to reach across the aisle and solve problems. And we know that we'll never be able to solve those problems if we aren't willing to listen to one another and get away from the name calling. It's very difficult in this world that we're living in of a 24/7 media that thrives on controversy and social media where people can launch endless attacks hiding behind a cloak of anonymity for members to work together. But that is what we must do. And we have examples from our past to guide us. We have Lyndon Johnson working with Everett Dirksen. We have the example of Ronald Reagan working with Tip O'Neill. And more recently in the Senate, we have the example of Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch, who came from very diverse political perspectives and yet were able to work together on issues like the Children's Health Insurance Program. And I would suggest that we have the example that Joe Lieberman and I have set in the Senate, and Josh and Tom are setting in the House. Compromise used to be considered a virtue. Now it's often viewed as a dirty word. Compromising doesn't mean abdicating your principles. It means searching for common ground. And in almost every issue, if you work hard enough, you can find common ground. But that needs to be considered a virtue once again. We simply cannot allow our country to continue to be torn apart in a way that makes progress so difficult to secure. And that's why I'm excited about the work of No Labels and the number of people who are attending this important conference. Polls have consistently shown that Americans want cooperation, civility, and collaboration, that they're tired of the polarization, hyper-partisanship, and divisiveness that have torn us apart. Through the noise, I believe that citizens still hear the voices of the founders of this country that founded our country on the principles of rights, responsibilities, and respect. Let's all of us join together to work to restore those principles. Together, working together, I know that we can do it. And No Labels is leading the way.